Oh, Christmas tree. Oh, Christmas. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize anyone was watching. All right, so you guys, in case you couldn't tell,
I love
like an embarrassing amount of loving Christmas. So I thought, how fun would it be to take advantage of the Christmas season and make just like the most intensely serious Christmas video ever that I have done. Anyhow, I thought, how fun would it be to do a really awesome Christmas craft? And does it get cuter? Like, they're so tiny. Look how cute those are. Okay, so a couple years ago, one of my girlfriends who has a little tiny hedgehog for a pet, which is the cutest thing ever, asked if I could make her a tiny little hat for her hedgehog. And it was basically the cutest thing I've ever seen. I made a couple more hedgehog hats for other folks who had hedgehogs as pets. But I thought for the Christmas season, how great would it be to use these as little Christmas decorations? So I made a bunch in different Christmassy colors, and they make the greatest little Christmas ornaments. So ideas for how you can use these. Obviously, just as a Christmas tree ornament, that's awesome. You can add them to a nice garland, have a little festive touch, or, I mean, we all know it's in style, you can use it as a stylish and seasonal addition to your husband's beard. We all know that husbands love that. So anyhow, these little guys are super easy and super fast to make. It probably takes like 30 or 40 minutes, I think, to do this entire thing. Anyhow, but so nice and fast, obviously, because like, how many stitches are you making in these? Not very many. So I'm gonna show you how you can quickly and easily make these little guys and just, you know, go a little Christmas crazy. It's gonna be great. All right, so supplies that you need for this craft. Some yarn. I bet you never guessed that. So the nice thing about this craft is all they need to be is adorable. Basically, there aren't a bunch of hard and fast rules. So, you know, just really have fun with it. And if you don't have exactly the same yarn that I'm using, or like maybe even don't use exactly the same needle size, you're gonna be fine. So for this little guy, I used some random unknown yarn that I happen to have in the bottom of my yarn bin. It's a little bit thinner. I'm not sure what weight this is, honestly. It's a little heavier than a fingering weight, but like less than a worsted. So yeah, it was just something that I happened to have, and I was like, that will be a Christmassy color. And then I didn't have any red, so I just ran to Walmart and got some Red Heart Super Saver in burgundy, because I liked the color. So this one, it's a medium size 4. So it's a little thicker than this other one, obviously. That's totally fine. I just cast on fewer stitches for this little guy. So when I used the slightly thinner yarn, I cast on 16 stitches for this little guy. And then when I'm using the slightly thicker yarn, I just cast on 12 stitches. So, I mean, this guy knits up pretty fast, and that's pretty awesome. So, other things you'll need. Pick out your yarn. As long as it's not like a super chunky yarn, you're gonna be fine. And then I used size 5 needles, and I used circulars because I love using circulars. Obviously, since you are knitting in the round, you have to either use circulars and do magic loop, or do double point needles. You can totally do double point needles, but my goodness, when you're doing something this small on double points, it just gets very pokey. So I just do it on magic loop. It's super fast, super easy. Okay. Other things you'll need: a tapestry needle to weave in the ends, a regular sewing needle with a slightly larger eye than usual, because you are going to be using that with fishing line to be able to attach your ornament. You can either use just the fishing line and create a loop, or you can create a little loop and attach it to your Christmas ornament hanger-upper thing. This was like 94 cents at Walmart, so that's pretty economical. Your scissors, your little Christmas tree ornament hanger-upper thingy, and then I finally found a reason to use my tiniest little Perfect Pom Pom Vaker. You guys, how cute is this? It's so adorable. All right, let's get started. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab my yarn and I'm going to do the red one. So we are going to cast on 12 stitches. Long tail cast on 12 stitches. All right, so I have my 12 stitches, and then because I'm going to be doing magic loop, I cast on one more so that I can knit 2 together to connect this. Okay, so I'm gonna scoot this down here. If you are unfamiliar with knitting magic loop, I'll put a link in the description below to my video that teaches how specifically to knit with magic loop. It's really not that difficult. All right, so 12 stitches, we'll divide that in half, 2, 4, 6. All right, so I'm pulling these up like this. So we have 6 stitches on our front needle and 7 stitches on our back needle. Because one of these, I am going to pop off onto this front needle. All right, so now I have 7 stitches on this front needle and 6 on the back. So I'm gonna pull this one out and then I'm going to knit these 2 together. Yay! Okay, so now I have 12 stitches total. Excellent. All right, so now I'm going to just do a 1 by 1 rib. So I just knit 1, so I'm gonna purl 1. Then we're gonna flip it around and do the same thing on the back side. Since we purled last, we're gonna knit this first guy. Right, so did our first row. So fast. Tiny projects are so fun. So we're just going to continue in that 1 by 1 rib, which is just knit 1, purl 1, repeat all the way around until it's about as long as we want. For this one, I knit about 15 rows, but again, you can make it however long or short as you want. In fact, it's fun to make them kind of different sizes. Make some like a little shorter and fatter, make some a little like longer and skinnier. Just, you know, follow your heart. All right, so let's go. All right, so I've gone about 14 rows now and decided I'm feeling like stopping. So next row, I am going to do a little decrease. So I'm gonna knit 1, and then I'm just gonna start knitting 2 together. All right, and then this last purl one, I'm going to actually slip around to the other side of the needles. And the only reason we're doing that is because when you're doing a knit 2 together, well, you want the knit stitch on the left-hand side. That way it will be the one that's in front. Otherwise, when we decrease, we would just have kind of this funny bump from the purl stitch on the front. And obviously that's not a super big deal on like a hat this tiny that you're just using for a decoration. But it's still kind of fun to do it just nicely, I guess. All right, so continue knitting 2 together across here until you only have 1 stitch left, and then you're just gonna purl that guy. And now, dun, 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 you're done with your decrease. So I'm going to grab my tapestry needle, going to trim this, and I'm gonna thread my tapestry needle. Then weave it through and then pull it through these stitches. Great. I'm gonna scoot this around to the other end of the needle. So those are simple to slip off. Done with your knitting needles now. All right, so I'm just gonna pull that tight and then put this down right down the center and pull it out the bottom and then flip this little guy inside out. Great, so now this little hat is inside out. I'm gonna keep a little pressure, keep a little tension on this just so that it doesn't come undone, and do a couple quick little knots. So I'm just pulling it through a stitch knotting that off. I'm gonna do it again. Slip it under just a little stitch there, pull that through, knot it off. I'm just gonna do that one last time. Obviously, again, since this isn't like something that you're wearing, like you don't need to be too freaked out about like making sure that the knots are just amazing, but you do want it to stay together. So, all right, just pulled that through. So I knotted it 3 times and then just wove it through a couple stitches. Trim that end, and then I'm just gonna weave in this little end at the bottom. So I'm just gonna weave this back and forth a few times so we can disappear this end in there. And then I'm gonna trim it off on the inside here. And now we're gonna set that aside for a moment. It's still inside out. And we're going to grab our teeny tiny Perfect Pom Pom Vaker. It's almost as large as that. Okay, so, and in case you aren't familiar with or don't remember how to use a Perfect Pom Pom Vaker, I'll put a link in the description below on my video on using a Perfect Pom Pom Vaker. The awesome thing again about making a little tiny project like this is this takes almost no time to make the pom-pom for. So, gonna wind this around. Close that, turn it, do the next side. Great, looks about even. Then we'll trim this and then cut right across the center of these. Great, and grab some more yarn, wind that around there twice, and tie that off in a good knot. I cut this way too long, so you can trim off some of that. But make sure you do leave enough that you can work with. Pop that open. Done with this little guy. Here's your tiny pom-pom. It's a little funky looking, but nothing that a little trimming can't fix. All right, that looks good. And I think it's cute when they're kind of like slightly disproportionately large for these tiny little hats. So now we'll thread this into our tapestry needle, both strands. Then, remember this little guy is still flipped inside out, so I'm gonna put this right down the middle here. Try to find the center, there we go. Okay. And I'm just gonna go ahead and pull this down as far as I can. Just gonna try to shove that down there. Okay. That's like nicely down at the base there. And then we are going to give this little tie off. Nice firm knot there. And then we're gonna just thread one end back through the tapestry needle. And then just go through one strand of yarn there and tie it off again with a nice little double knot. And that's good. And we're just gonna trim these and then pop this back right side out. Fat little pom-pom in there makes it a little bit challenging, but nothing we can't handle. Looks good. You can continue to, like, you know, trim some little pieces there if they're looking a little sloppy. Great. And then you're just going to roll up the little brim. Oh my gosh. Every time I just can't handle how cute they are. How adorable is that? Oh, I love it. And the pom-pom just looks so large for it, and I love it. Okay, great. So you can either leave it just like this, or if you want to make this into an ornament, now is when you're gonna grab your fishing line, your regular sewing needle, and your Christmas ornament hanger attacher thingy. And then a length of fishing line. And you really could use thread if you wanted to. I'm just using fishing line because it's clear, and I thought that would be nice to just like not have a visible thread coming out the top. But you know, again, you can use whatever you feel like using. All right, so we're gonna thread this and just gonna pull it a little ways down. I'm gonna put this right down the center. Try not to snag any stitches on the way down. It's not the end of the world if you do, but it'll just look nicer if you're not accidentally snagging the inside of the hat, because it'll make it pucker just a little bit. Okay. So we're gonna pull that down a little bit and pull that little end out, leaving a nice long tail down at the bottom here. Okay, and then, so back down through the hat. Again, try to just get it down as much in the center as you can. Also try not to stab yourself with the needle because that doesn't feel good. Okay, I think we did it. So I'm gonna pull the needle out there. All right, so I'm gonna pull this down, pull the needle off. I'm making sure I'm keeping this loop on top here. And then what I'm gonna do is you can either, okay, you have two options. One, if you don't have any of these super fancy Christmas ornament hanger things, you can totally just leave like a nice big loop and then tie this down here, and then that can be the way that you like hang this on your Christmas tree or whatever you want to do. That is a great, perfectly fine option. So I just happen to have a couple of these hanging around the house, and so I thought I would use them. All right, so I hooked those on the loop at the top, and then I'm just pulling that down so it's just right at the top there, so you hardly have much of a loop at all. This one, I did leave a bigger loop, and I didn't like it as much, so I'm gonna pull this one basically down tight, and then with your two pieces of fishing line hanging out the bottom. I'm sorry, this probably is like the downside to this being like transparent is that you probably can't see very well what I'm doing. So I'm just taking the two strands of fishing line and I'm gonna tighten a knot, pulling that just a little tight there because I want this to disappear up inside the hat. So I just did a little double knot, and I'm gonna throw on one more knot just for kicks. And then I'm just gonna trim that, and I'm just gonna pull, let that knot disappear up inside the hat. Oh my gosh, and look! Oh, so cute. All right, yeah, and there you go. Yay! All right, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope you got a good laugh out of all of this super over-the-top Christmas nonsense that I enjoy. And I hope you make your own little Christmas ornaments, and if you do, I would love it if you commented below telling me like what you did, if you tweaked the pattern a little bit, what colors you used. So yeah, comment below about that, or go over and find me on Instagram and tag me in your tiny Christmas hat photos because I would really love to see them. All right, so have a wonderful day and a wonderful Christmas season, and I'll see you next time.